been stripped of their
I was going to
honours.
say 114. That's more than I would have thought. Give me an example of someone who has been stripped of their honour.
Or what about a fine array of nasty dictators? Robert Mugabe, Nicolae Ceausescu, Benito Mussolini. Yeah, they were all stripped.
I didn't know we ever gave Mussolini one.
First place.
Yeah.
How
did Mussolini end up with one?
I have to say, Salma, the mind boggles. What about jockey Lester Piggott? He was stripped of his OBE back in 1987 for tax fraud. Royal Bank of Scotland guy, Fred Goodwin, whose role in the bank's near collapse resulted in him losing his knighthood. James Crosby, another ex-banker, Halifax ex-boss, he was stripped of his knighthood for, the poor way he ran his bank, basically.
Well,
then there was...
You see, with great power comes great responsibility, Mark, and these people have not used their power responsibly, clearly.
Absolutely. You do have a duty to be a good boy or girl if you get an honour.
You behave yourself and not get on the naughty step, basically. Mark, I wanted to ask you, how does this system work? Because, let's be honest, is the Queen keeping up with all the people who get honours? Does she personally say one day over breakfast, oh, hey, why don't we give this person honour? I've liked their work. You know, she can't be across the breadth of sectors, industry, entertainment, arts, culture that requires her to be. So how do we even get on the list? Do the palace sources, I say the palace sources, these invisible, omnipresent, figures that seem to float around and say things and dictate policy, is there someone in her team that recommends it? Do people have to nominate themselves to get on it? Who puts them forward? How does this work?
Okay, so the Honours and Appointments Secretariat at the Cabinet Office make the initial assessment of the nomination and carry out basic fact checks. Then the next stage is that nominees are put forward to one of 9 specialist subcommittees. For example, a candidate nominated for services to medicine would be passed to the Health Committee. A teacher would go to education and so forth. And those recommendations are then sent to the Office of the Prime Minister for consideration. And then once his office has had a look at it, they're sent to Buckingham Palace to be rubber stamped. Now, you can't nominate yourself for an honour, but you have to be in it to win it. So if people can't nominate themselves, they rely on friends and family and business contacts to put them forward. So if any of your listeners know someone who's worthy, then make the effort, put pen to paper and nominate them. So you literally can nominate a family member, a friend, your brother, sister, cousin, or a community contact, or someone running a local football team, that kind of thing. But they will go unrecognised if nobody bothers to put them forward. And we've all had these conversations in the pub where we've, gone, oh yeah, Freddie's amazing, he deserves a knighthood. But then we all go home, go to bed, forget about it and never do anything about it.
And Freddie never gets his knighthood.
No. And what your listeners should do, if they do feel passionate about somebody getting an honour, is go onto the government website and download the application form, or the nomination form as it's formally called, and fill it out and send it in. It's free of charge to do. And if they're not sure whether somebody's worthy, then give us a call at Awards Intelligence and we'll give them a free, honest assessment of that person's chances. And then they can go on to do it themselves, or if they haven't got the time or inclination to do it themselves, we can do it for them.
Well,
save them time, effort and aggravation.
And a lot of paperwork, I would imagine. And I'm going to ask our listeners now, if there's anyone that you know, who would you nominate for an award to be on the Queen's Honours list? Give me a call, 0800 731 2000, or drop me a text, 81333, pop London at the beginning. Let me know who in your life is worthy. And don't say your mum, that doesn't count. Mums are all worthy. Everyone loves their mums and would want them to be honoured. But who in your life do you think this person absolutely should be? Give me a call and let me know. Because, Mark, there are an extraordinary amount of people doing incredible things. It's impossible to we like to think that there's lots of bad things happening in the world, but there's actually some incredible things happening by so many individuals on the ground, especially this last year.
Yeah, and I refer to them as extraordinary, ordinary people. It's all very well talking about, John Simpson or Dolly Parton. I do tip her to get a damehood, by the way.
Dolly Parton? Okay.
Dolly Parton, of all people, yeah. She helped to fund the Moderna vaccine.
She did. She donated $1 million to Moderna.
$1 million into the pot. Absolutely.
Dame Dolly does sound nice, doesn't it?
Oh, it's great for the headline. The press will love it, won't they? Yeah. She has a great track record of, philanthropy.
Yes,
although she did swerve, I like to call it, the US's highest honour, the Medal of Freedom, when Donald Trump offered it to her a short while ago.
But do you think that was more to do with who was offering it as opposed to any kind of principled decision against the honour?
I think you might be right.
That's just my guess.
Tell anybody.
I shan't tell a single soul. But that leads me to an interesting conversation, Mark, because especially this last year, after the murder of George Floyd and the protests that happened globally, there has been a reignited conversation about what it means to accept an honour from the Queen, from the Crown, the palace, the royal family, the family which has a history of colonisation and slavery behind it, and what are the ethical implications of that. Mark, do you think we're going to see more people swerve those honours, as you like to put it, out of a standpoint or to protest or to make their point?
We're not seeing it at the moment, Salma. And I think the royal family have done a lot around those issues, and they do take an active role in the Commonwealth. And I think people, generally speaking, are accepting of the royal family, what they do for wider society, and accepting of the honours system. And at the end of the day, the government made a very important announcement regarding the honours system a while back. I go as far as to say, actually, it's the most important announcement for about a decade or so for those interested in making a nomination. They basically set out their big 5 priorities for people who are going to get honours. And those 5 are those that boost the economy through entrepreneurial and business achievement. HMRC need tax revenue, and the government love companies that employ lots of people and all that kind of stuff. The second of the 5 priorities are those that support young people in achieving their potential. The third, those that aid social mobility, followed by those that help the community, so those running the under-12 soccer team in their village for 15 years, for example, and finally those that tackle discrimination. So those are the 5 key priority areas. That doesn't mean someone working tirelessly against animal cruelty is going to be ruled out. Of course not. But it's really helpful that the government have set out their priority areas. So if your listeners do know of someone who clearly fits at least one of those 5 areas, then they really should put pen to paper and nominate their friend or family member.
Well, there you go. You can nominate people, and it's such an interesting rabbit hole to go down, Mark. And I could talk to you for so much longer. And I'm now in these rabbit holes of people who have accepted and people who haven't, and people who've said no. And it's so fascinating, the people that have and the people that haven't. And I'm looking at a list, and I didn't know David Bowie said no, or Nigella Lawson, which is just the rant. And I was thinking, it'll be how interesting to have a conversation with those people as well as the people that accepted it. And I think there is such scope to do different things depending on whether you say yes or no to it, and it's going to be so fascinating to see who does come out on that list on Friday. We'll be keeping our eyes peeled. Mark Llewellyn-Slade, thank you so much for joining me and for giving us your predictions.
You're welcome, Salma. Thanks for having me.
Take care.